All right, it's 7 o'clock. We call the meeting to order, please. We could rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you for coming up for our special meeting. Ms. Atchison?
Here.
Mr. Bray? Linda, did you say you heard something from him? Or?
I believe that when I was first trying to arrange the meeting, he said he wouldn't be able to make it.
No.
I think I heard something like that too.
I will mark him excused. Mrs. Brimmer?
Here.
Mr. Conley? Here. Ms. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins?
Here.
Mr. Laws emailed me, so he is excused as well. Mr. Jones is here. Carmen Abertini is here. After a harrowing trip the last time. Need a motion to approve our agenda for tonight, please.
So moved.
Support. Okay. Any discussion on that? Anything need to change? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Public comments. Anybody that would like to address the Planning Commission? Now's your big moment. We're checking for tomatoes. All right. We have a couple of public hearings for tonight's agenda, so I'd like a motion, please, from someone to open our public hearing on the special land use request from Moss Development Retirement Living Management for 426 South Main.
So moved.
All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you. Carmen, please.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, we have a special land use review dated February 15th. This is for the Green Acre Senior Living Project. We reviewed the site plan at the last meeting, so I think we all have a good understanding of what we're proposing here. And actually, the previous single-family residential property in use there was non-conforming because it's in the B1 district. And so we're replacing that, from a use perspective, we're replacing that with a conforming use that requires a special land use, but it still is considered a conforming use, so we're making a nice transition. And speaking of transition, what's nice about their project, too, is that you've got, right next door, you've got a pretty intense commercial use, and then across the road, you've got residential uses, and then behind them, you've got institutional, which is the school complex. So really, when you think about what they're doing, they're really providing a perfect transition between all of those activities and all of those uses. And I think that was the biggest thing in the review letter that comes out of that, is that it is a really nice transition. It's not going to generate a ton of traffic. You're not going to get a lot of, noise and that sort of thing. I don't think they'll be throwing too many wildfires there, I imagine. So it really is an ideal use of that corner, not to mention the fact that it really upgrades and improves the image, and that's one of the entryways really into the city. So with that, there's a recommendation for approval. It was conditioned on site plan approval, but you've already granted this. This is a follow-up to it. So we feel they meet all the special land use criteria, and that's therefore recommending approval on it. Okay. Any questions?
Yes.
Did the Fulton Drive issue get resolved?
That's a good question.
We're still working on that because it takes a lot of time to get to the school board
Yes.
and whatnot. So as soon as the project is contingent on getting approval. As soon as we get approval, we'll let you guys know. So it's like a 2-month process to get the school board together.
Okay.
And actually, I think the key on that really is showing the amount of traffic and what your peak hours are, that it's really not going to have a dramatic impact on their operations. And I think that's probably the real key issue that they would look at. I mean, the use itself is a perfect transition, and I'm sure the school district is happy to have them as a replacement to the other outdoor storage and the like that used to be there. So I think it presents a better image for them.
I could also just point, I mean, that is something that we do have to address as part of the site plan approval, so so that will be addressed before we get final site plan approval.
It was just a curiosity question.
Okay.
I was hoping you'd get it taken care of.
We're trying.
Move slowly, huh?
Yeah, it takes a lot to get everything in order. But we aren't gonna put any traffic, that's gonna be a do not enter, it's really just for fire trucks. So it really shouldn't be too much of a problem.
If I could, I'd recommend that you talk to them about making it at all, because really there's not much traffic. And to give people the opportunity to come out at the intersection instead of coming right out onto the main road, especially if they're turning left, might be a good opportunity. So, throw that out there and see what they think. They may be willing, because it is such a low volume use, they might be willing to say, okay, we'll have and then maybe the fallback is, okay, what if they really don't want it, do it as an emergency access. I think it'd be easier for you to maintain that way too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I would just say I wouldn't want to make that a requirement. If it works out, that would be good for everybody.
Any other questions for Carmen?
It's got to be better than the pile of rocks next door.
Anything else you guys want to add to that? Okay, any comments from the public? I'd like to address this one.
How many rooms are there? Is that from room?
Yeah, it'll be total 32, 20 units of assisted and 12 units of membership.
And when is the projected breakdown?
Oh, when you say yes tonight, I'll be there tomorrow. No,
Oh.
I'm kidding. I gotta get these old guys mobilized too a little bit. Probably another month and a half. I mean, we've done a lot of site work already, so we're kind of ready. So we're finishing up another project in Lowell, where the excavators are ready to start here. And then it is a approximate 8-month build out. And then we should be pretty close to being over. It all depends on, because we are licensed by the state of Michigan. We never know how long that's going to take. So,
You mean after it's completed?
after it's completed, and we have to go through the licensing process. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes weeks or a month.
And you have other facilities?
We are within, this will be our 18th city throughout Michigan.
Any other?
How does it go? Is there people that they will transfer or?
Well, we already have a couple people that are on the list. Yeah, we've gotten quite a few calls because they know that we're coming, and also because we're in the Greenville area behind on the Lowell. So, once we find an administrator that will run it, we will start. First of all, we'll probably put a sign up. We'll start generating calls, and we'll be able to give them tours to some of our other facilities that are close, that are similar, and then go from there. So usually when we open up the doors, we have at least 8 to 10 that are ready to move in, and then it's usually about 4 to 6 every month from thereafter. So, all right. I should have bought applications. I should have.
Is this considered then a rehabilitation?
No, it's assisted living.
It's assisted living.
Senior assisted living.
Yep, and it's a licensed adult foster care home, is what it's called. So we can provide care for anyone over the age of 18, although the majority of our residents are 75 and above.
You have to qualify to receive this is open
No,
to anyone?
it is open, and it is private, but there are so many different things that you can get through the state of Michigan for help with funding, with veterans as well, and so we have several different avenues.
Are the units self-contained as far as like somebody can cook and?
No, each room has their own little kitchenette, which is a small little fridge, little microwave, but all meals are served in the main dining area. So we take care of everything.
So exciting.
Yeah, we're excited too. We're very excited.
Right, I think if we've covered all that, need a motion to close the public hearing, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Our second public hearing, I need a motion to open, please, for special land use request from the Community Building Development Team for the property of township here at Main and Maple.
Make the motion. Full second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Carmen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should have another letter dated February 15th. It's the special land use review for the Cedar Springs Public Library building. And what's included in this is the library building and then the ancillary activities, which includes the walkway, the landscape area at the corner, and the parking lot that it backs up to. And with regard to the criteria, obviously this is a type of use that is going to be compatible with, because you're right next to the downtown area. So it offers an attractive addition to the downtown area. So, and in terms of the use, looking at the master plan and the zoning, the master plan actually identifies this as the location for the library and the other civic uses like that. And also in the B3 district, which we looked at when we worked on the rezoning, it is intended, if you look at what the B3 district is for, it's to provide locations, and it says for commercial businesses, but the intent is to provide locations where people can get at it and get to it from the road network in an easy fashion, but not still have an impact on the surrounding areas. And so really this does meet that intent, and it is easy to get at from here, but yet it's still not so busy like if we're on 17 Mile that people would have a difficult time walking to it. So you can drive and walk to it, and it's in a really good location for that. And obviously the biggest impact for a use like this would be parking. And they've met all the parking requirements of the ordinance. There's on-street parking. The city's obviously going to be looking at additional parking in the future in that area to accommodate other businesses downtown and other civic uses in the center here. So that is something that is not only addressed currently, but I think will continue to be looked at in the future as additional development occurs. So with that, there is a recommendation here to approve the special land use, and as with the previous application, conditioned upon site plan approval, but that's already been granted, so it's just as long as you approve that they've met the criteria. And there were some special criteria here too, but they meet all of those, all four of the criteria. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. You're welcome. Any public comments on this special land use? Okay, seeing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this. Motion support, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So, let's then move to our discussions on this. I need a motion to approve the special land use that we just discussed for 426 South Main.
I would make the motion to approve the special land use for the properties located at 426 South Main.
Second.
Presented.
I got support for that. All right, any questions, concerns, discussion on that? No? Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And the motion for our special land use at, for the library and adjoining properties at Main and Maple.
Motion to approve special land use for property located northwest corner of North Main and West Main Street.
Support.
Any questions, concerns, comments on that? Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Yes, sir?
Just as a note, our little master plan did show this type of assisted living village, or whatever you want to call it, out by which is the old family fair, in that lot and property there where the Taco Bell is. That was in the master plan at one time. We discussed to put but we're moving it in there, and that's great. So there's a need for it, and we've looked at it. It's just coming Thank you.
When you were looking at the site, you thought that site was better because it brought us more to the central downtown
Right.
location, and really would like to connect with the city as much as we can.
Yeah, it's good. We're right across from the largest Christmas tree in Kent County.
Are we really?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
I didn't know.
That tree across the road from you is lit.
Is it lit up in the,
Yep.
in the winter?
Yeah.
For Christmas holiday.
Okay.
About 85 foot. Something putting in advertising.
So this will be the year it dies.
No.
Carmen, we're looking at in April, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. I saw the question you were He's like,
So,
I'm sure you will.
I can tell you what, is that it?
just,
Have a good night.
you got, real quickly before we adjourn, Carmen, just give us an update on what we're doing with the master plan, because we're gonna talk about that in April, right?
Yeah, that's going to actually come in 2 weeks.
Right, right.
So you're getting tonight your copy, your draft copy of your updated master plan. And the one thing that Kathleen and I kept going back and forth on was in the future land use map, we talked about public,
Which page is that?
which would be on page 19.
Okay.
And it wasn't intended to give it to you tonight and go through the whole master plan. I just needed a little feedback on this one particular issue. And the discussion we had was in the previous plan, the current plan, we have it identified as public institutional. And we've included not only all the city properties, but we've also included anything that was institutional in nature, which can include churches, hospitals, things like that, schools. Those are all included in that. And what we talked about was potentially separating out the public from the institutional and having the institutional roll into whatever the appropriate surrounding district is. Usually it's residential. And I just wanted to, which I'm usually a proponent of actually, but there are really two different ways of doing it. And one is the way we're doing it right now. So I guess my question for you is, if we did switch over to strictly public, what would you like to see included in public? What types of facilities? I mean, obviously we talked about let's call it the Civic Center, which is the library property now, the CBBT project. So let's call that the Civic Center. So obviously that would be included, and we'd include the city offices here, public, and we would include any city-owned park.
Yeah.
Okay, so those would definitely be public, but I guess I want to know what other things how do you want to break out public from institutional?
Publicly owned, my thoughts.
City-owned, or could it be county-owned? Could it be? Because the
county.
county owns the big vacant piece of property on 17 Mile.
Correct, and then we could put any of the properties owned by the city would come under public property. Institutional would be self-explanatory, the schools, anything in the school district or a school.
How would that work if, for instance, we were to get another, a clinic, doctor's office, an expansion of Spectrum or something like that comes out here?
Still
Would that
privately
be
owned.
institutional, or would that be, I'm just curious.
That's a good question.
That would be, they're owned by corporation somewhere. Maybe as hospitalization, public service.
Should it be split?
It doesn't have to be, but
It makes more
that's what we
sense.
had discussed. And the primary reason you would want to potentially, not that you can't fix it later on, because usually you know when something is going to be transitioning from public or institutional over to a private developer, like if you've got a vacant school building, vacant elementary school building is the most common one, and they sell it to developers who convert it over into housing or some other type of use, but generally housing or office. At that point in time, you would have to change your master plan and change the zoning designation for the property. If you already have it in the master plan, then you would only have to change the zoning on it. It just eliminates one step. But if you're confident you don't see a lot of change in the institutional uses, we don't have to separate them.
Well, wouldn't it be better, the way I'm looking at it, wouldn't it be better to leave it as two, so that way it gives options?
So to leave it as public institutional?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But if something were to come in, I mean, it would kind of leave a little more option of what could go.
yeah, definitely it does. The only downfall to having them together once again is if one of the properties becomes available, they don't need it anymore, and they want to sell it to whoever the highest bidder is or whatever it might be. And it goes into private development. It's the only time where it's a little bit of an inconvenience, but you know, when you see that happening, you can still jump in there and change the master plan. And in many cases, the zoning, it might already be zoned residential, even though it falls under the future land use category of public and institutional.
You could too, you put your public as non-taxable. Would be tax exempt, would be a public. Your institutional falls under the same thing, with the exception, I believe, the charter schools, those are not tax exempt.
And some of them are falling into a huge gray area right now.
Correct.
Because they're chartered through the state and supervised by the state.
You know, somewhere in the background, there's a corporation that owns them and operates them.
Aren't those charters paid for by a college?
No, they just oversee the curriculum,
Yeah.
the accreditation of the curriculum, but it's usually a for-profit business that owns.
Chartered by a college. Just their name goes on it. It's run private enterprise.
But I just heard recently that there are some charter schools that are actually overseen by the superintendent of the state, of the schools, which puts them into kind of a quasi, when we talk about zoning, we can say where public schools can go, but we have no control over their site plan. Private schools, we have total control over both, but they have this new category of charter schools that is overseen by the superintendent. And when the superintendent oversees the school, they no longer have to comply with local zoning for site plan items, only for use. So it's kind of an emerging thing that I just heard about recently, so it's a little bit tricky. But I don't know that we'll have any of those here. They tend to be located in, I know they've got some in Detroit.
Politically connected.
Yeah. But I'm fine either way. I mean, it's 6 to 1, half dozen of the other. It's whichever I just know that was brought up before, and you tell me which way you want, and we'll do it accordingly. If you want to keep them together for now, we can do that. And look at it, you know, the next master plan will not be an update, it'll be more of a rewrite, and at that time, if you want to change, you can do that. But whichever way you want, it's not like there's a right way to do it.
Is this issue then separate from zoning?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's what I thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure that we were discussing here.
Yeah. And as long as we show which we did, as long as we show the Civic Center property as a public institution, which we do already, I can't foresee any other problems or problematic locations. Now, we could.
I guess I'd say, since we already have it grouped together, just leave it, and then if we find that it's problematic down the road, then we can revisit it and separate it.
And it doesn't preclude us from having, if we do want to do a public district, it doesn't preclude us from picking and choosing which ones are public, because it's public/institutional.
Right. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question? Like, for example, North Country Trail, where that comes through Cedar Springs and will go out and tie into White Creek Avenue, and I know there's been businesses that have talked about coming to Cedar, but I'd be interested in having that trail connecting the business district out there. Will that fit okay also?
The trail itself,
Yeah,
is shown as public, quasi-public.
I just just wanna make sure because there's talks of some loops and that kind of stuff also.
But
He's
these
talking
are
North
very,
Country Trail.
yeah, this is,
Oh, different one?
yeah, we've got the North Country Trail that's attaching to the White Pine Trail.
That's by attaching to White Pine.
Oh, okay,
Attached to-
you talked
So
about
attached
that.
to a loop, yeah.
Now, who will actually own the property? Where the trail, is it? an
Well, that's
easement
just, yeah,
or-
we're gonna have some right of way, we're gonna have some right of ways granted on some our property, some private property. So, and then the other aspect of it is, you know, if the street ever goes out, you know, would it run alongside that street so that we have snowmobile access and bicycle access also on this leg of things. So just wanna make sure we have that ability. And answer your question, right now, the way she stands right now, part of that, well, actually, most all that would go on private ground or CBDT ground, which will come to the city, so some will be city, but like Bob and Betty Truesdale granted access to the property they have, so there'll be an access agreement drawn up for, you know, what period of time, yes.
So at this moment, we don't have a fully defined map of where the North Country Trail is
No,
going to
that's
be.
in the process now as we speak.
So-
We'll start on that in June next week, then.
So it would be really difficult for us to designate any areas on here.
Right, I just want to make sure that our master plan has the thought foresight in us into it, that's coming at us.
For future.
Mr. Chairman, for something like that, I would have to believe that we would be able to update the map to show the trail without having to go through the review process.
Right.
So when that's fully known, maybe a year, whenever from now, we can just go ahead and amend the map and have the planning commission okay that change. I don't think it's a material or really substantive change to what we have in the plan supports the trail system. So the big thing with master planning is when you make a change and you have to distribute it and it has to go, I mean, once we get this the way we want it, then it goes out to the county and all, it's a fairly lengthy process, a little shorter for an update, but it's a fairly lengthy review process before you can finally say, okay, we've adopted it. But to update a map like that, we don't have to go through that. So once you do know for sure, let us know, and I mean, it doesn't take much to add it to the map.
So, what do we think of public institutional? We just have them keep it like it is for now, and then we can break it out later if we need to.
Is that what they were talking about by the community use? Zone?
Well, that's,
The community use would be separate from this, because that's what zoning
that's
goes
zone.
They wanted a new district, an actual public district, so it doesn't have to fall under B3 or whatever, that it's actually designated as public, and these are the uses that you can put in there by right.
This is,
Use is not zoning.
For certain, for city-owned and leased or whatever property, licensed property, it makes sense to do something like that. It's not that difficult to do. And then they don't, if they want to make changes and stuff like, they don't have to come for a special land use review. They just come for site plan.
so, and again, my interpretation of this is just that this is what we would like to see coming down the pipe. How we actually are going to zone it, or any, the rest of the nitty-gritty is left to be determined, and it could change, but this is what we see.
Right. Okay.
So just keep it the way it is for now. Everybody's good with that, and then later, well, if we want to adjust it, we can do it later. Because like I said, we'll be doing, I'm sure in the next 5 years, there's going to be a lot of changes here. We're already starting
Seems
to
like
see
it.
some of them. Yeah. I think the way the predictions are and what I'm seeing in other communities too, with the economy, I think it's going to be very busy for the next 5 years. So when we revisit this, it's going to be, there's going to be a fair number of changes.
Good. All right. Motion to adjourn? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Yeah, it
All right.
actually felt like it was longer than half hour.
April, everybody gonna be here in April?
What's the date?
Fifth? Is that the fifth? Yeah, the fifth. April 5th.
Yeah, I know I can't be there.
Right.
But, yeah, I can't reach it from Arizona.
April 5th, no,
It's at 6, I think. I think the 5th is a Monday.
it is, it's a Tuesday. April 5th.
April 5th.
What is April 1st?
I don't know what we're doing that.
It's two down.
Yeah, well,
3.
3.
Three.
That's spring break.
It's spring
Spring break week, that's why
Yeah,
You won't be here then?
I shouldn't be here. I don't have any stuff, so.
Who's
I haven't
the
had
third
spring break in 27 years.
She said she's not sure if she'll be back.
Oh,
He's gone.
I have a hunter safety class.
So, all right, well, if anybody else is going to be here, then let us know so we can try to reschedule and not have people here and not be able to conduct meetings.
Well, if we have anything, maybe we won't have anything yet. Be here for April 5th. Do we have anything on the
Well, I'm
docket?
gonna review the master plan unless there's a real challenge with the quorum.
It's like 4 gone.
Oh, really?
No,
It's spring break,
Three.
so.
For who?
That's what I said, I haven't had spring break in 27
well,
years.
3 people gone, so.
Well, we can do one of two
I don't go
things.
away for the whole thing, I have one day. Then I'm off.
We don't know about Mark and
Dale either. Dale, I think had a problem with it being during spring break.
Yep.
So that's 4.
Well, we have one of the two things we can do. We can either not hold the meeting in April and hold off till May, which would be May 3rd, or we could push it to the following Tuesday. It's your call.
The following Tuesday does not work for me for sure.
Well, I always see when it gets closer who's gonna be here, and if there's not gonna be enough,
Well,
then just
right.
hold
How
it
many
in
times do
May.
we have to go?
It's only 2 weeks from today, so.
We haven't published it.
yeah, we need to know.
Because we don't, if there's, I don't know if there's anybody else that's is on the agenda, I mean, we need to
It's my calendar.
let them know, because.
Nothing coming up?
Well, I'm not sure, but I haven't, it's 2 weeks before the meeting and I haven't received, there's something going on that might be going into the industrial park area, White Creek area. What was his business?
Oh, the storage one?
It wasn't storage.
The April one, one to five?
No,
Wasn't it about their hunting or boating?
no, that, I haven't heard anything about that. This is the gentleman that called me a couple of weeks ago, and I told him to talk to you.
Because I know I talked to one evening about
Something else. I don't remember what
I don't
type of
remember getting
business
a call
was.
from anybody else.
Yeah, because you emailed me after I talked to him.
Oh, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He has to have a site plan review, but it's 2 weeks before the meeting.
Yeah,
I
we
haven't
need-
heard anything from him.
Yeah, the engineer, and, yeah, we usually need, especially with the engineer. He's in a real busy season, I don't think we can get this turned around.
So that would probably be a new meeting.
White Creek Industrial Park.
So, delay it till May?
Yeah, I think it's, would probably be safest just not to have the April one then, because, you know,
And then May 3rd is it?
it looks like we're running tight on getting a form.
As long as there's nothing like urgent, it gives you a little more time to live in the master plan too.
Okay, so
No.
post that word for people that need to know that. So, thank you. All right, so then we will see everybody on May 3.
One less meeting in April.
Yeah.
Makes up for the special ones.
We'll give them review
Yeah.
comments.
That's right, yeah.
Like I said, I know Mike.
Only 11 meetings.
Last time, because he needed more time to look at the plan.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight.
So,
We're over
very often.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's got